Recording.
Started what recording?
I started the podcast recording.
The podcast recording? What?
What?
Redoing intro. I'm just kidding. we don't redo it because we're real.
What is this? Deal. We're the Real Deal podcast.
Nice. Welcome. No, Christian, you seem very lax. Our audience can't see it, but you are in a very, very awesome chair.
Oh, yeah. We just got a new chair, and it's awesome.
It's like a cool little,
It's a wicker chair that's got, the bowl and the, circle.
And then, the cushion inside.
Yeah.
Those are really comfortable. I had one back in my childhood. But, yeah, guys, welcome to the Real Deal podcast. Session 2 of Bojack Horseman Season 2. I mean... We're going into it, man. We really like the show so far. I mean, obviously, Christian's seen the show in its fullest. I've seen the show a little bit, but going back and watching it, A to B, season 1, season 2, and I'm currently getting through season 3 right now. It's just so much fun.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so much fun. It's so emotional. It's just such a crazy show that if you are in the genre of I don't know. I feel like if you're in the era of middle, teenage to millennial style, you're going to get the most kick out of it. But I mean, it's honestly a show for everybody who just loves that kind of humor.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it encapsulates a lot in the show with not only its language, but how it presents information. Also, I'm moving my cord, so if it sounds bad, I'm sorry, podcast listeners.
No, I mean, it's just super fun. I mean, it's just literally I mean, I don't really know how to really describe it. It's just a really cool show. Every episode is just something new, creative, fun. The jokes are witty.
And season 2 is where it starts becoming an actual show and not just the setup.
Oh yeah, no. Season 2 felt like there was a lot of execution and storylines and stuff that made you, again, not like this Bojack character, but you still feel sympathetic for him because he's just inches away from actually having a pretty decent life. Yeah,
it's just a story of self-sabotage right now, which is awful. But it's the precursor for what happens later, and this is a big season to show the interpersonal relationships of Princess Carolyn and Bojack, and a lot of understanding where Bojack is coming from.
Yes, and
it's just super interesting because I mean, what we start off with episode 1,
the brand new couch.
Yeah, the brand new couch. We start with Bojack and his mom.
Yes.
And it's interesting that the first thing she says to him in this episode is, "Don't sit so close to the TV. It'll make you cruel."
Yes.
That's such a weird thing for a mom to tell their kid. You know what I mean?
Apparently it's a trope, though. So I saw in another show. I watched The Cable Guy, the Jim Carrey movie, about a couple days ago.
About Larry?
No, that's a different Cable Guy.
Oh.
This one has multiple personalities or multiple different aliases. But in that movie, he stands so close to the TV that he basically gets his brain fried, and so he basically acts and lives like he's in television, and that he's inspired by the different quotes and storylines that happen in a film. That's how his behavior is so wacky and weird. So it's a trope where it's if you stand too close to the TV, it's if you eat a watermelon and you swallow the seeds, you're gonna turn into a watermelon. None of it really matters, but it's a thing to scare kids and stuff. And especially with what we've seen in season 1 with Bojack's relationship with his parents being very abusive, mentally and also sometimes physically abusive. It's something where Bojack is scared to go against his mother and be obedient.
Beatrice is not a good person, and we get a lot of her this season, and this is where we are set up to not like her, of course.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. They really, really drive that home in this season, I think. But so in this episode, the brand new couch, Bojack gets a brand new couch and he starts getting this motivational, speaking type of thing he's been listening to. And it's hollow. He's just trying to trick himself into happiness, I think. He's saying, if I do the dance and I do all this for long enough, I'll eventually be happy. And he acts different. He like put effort into it, and it doesn't work out for him.
Because like when he's interacting with Mr. Peanut Butter, he's basically like mimicking him in a bit, where it's that fake positive attitude and can-do attitude, which isn't really BoJack, and that leads to later when they're in the Secretariat movie, he is just flopping all of his lines because he's trying to be always positive and not let in any...
He's delivering his lines like you would on Horsing Around, really.
Yeah, he's trying to not show any shreds of negativity because he doesn't want to be that person anymore. But that's...
What are you doing here?
And he keeps going.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we do catch him a couple of times in the episode where he is a little bit down or he's by himself. And he just asks, like, what are you doing here?
I also think the set... I mean, obviously, there's, like, the A story that's really, like, impactful, and there's, like, the B story that's really silly. And I just like that this B story is just them on set. Like, Diane is given the task of watching the cord. And
the most important job on a movie set.
And she doesn't watch the cord, and someone just dies.
Yeah.
And they're
No, her face... an assistant... Her face gets burned by coffee, right?
Her face gets burned, but she later dies of her injuries.
I don't think she does.
Because they put a flower thing of it about
No, she hasn't died because she's in the later episode. She's the assistant with the weird face.
Well, okay, she later dies in this season. I'm sorry, but she does get very disfigured from it because she falls and trips over the cord. Yeah. And then Todd's just on set too, and Kelsey just like really likes his face. And we get to see a lot more of Kelsey.
He's such a cute guy. Oh, I love Kelsey.
She's so cool.
She's very cool. Yeah, look at this silly guy. Give this guy a cookie. He's so cute. We see a lot of Beatrice's reservations towards things, her very traditional mindset, her very rich upbringing. She complains about a guy's t-shirt because it's a t-shirt. And then what was on it is, what was it? It was like YOLO. And she was like, I will not be YOLOing, whatever that is, or something like that. But it's one of those things where it's like, we really understand how how in her time she is. Yeah. Also, new BoJack starts splitting at the seams when it comes down to it. Just he gets in these as the story progresses. BoJack keeps trying to be like, I'm positive, and things start going wrong, and he starts getting really, really mad about them, and starts reverting back to old BoJack. Also this season we meet Rutabaga. And he's the 26er. So Princess Carolyn is on the floor 27, and he's on floor 26, and they're like a close work friends that become something more later in this season.
He's just really upbeat,
he's a sleazeball too.
Sleazy agent that has just these really funny one-liners.
Grease back hair.
Yeah. I love that he's played by I think his name is Jim Parse. No, he's not. That's not his name. The guy who voices Sonic. No offense, I don't know your name currently. He is just so much fun and energetic, and this like you said, a sleazy character where you can tell that he doesn't really care for anything. That it's not like about himself, but he just is like so charismatic and stuff. Where the characters he's talking to just end up like falling for his shtick.
Yeah, for sure. We also see Herb more in this season. Herb Kazaz.
Well, not too much longer.
Yeah, not too much longer, but we do see him a little bit this season talking to... he talks to Sarah Lynn in this season. He also talked to... I don't think it was BoJack, was it? I think we see a flashback of him.
It's a flashback of him and BoJack, but it's not anything major.
And Charlotte.
And then it's a flashback of him talking to this other actor, which we'll get into the third episode about. But it's just about, because in this season, spoiler, Herb dies from his cancer.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't die from cancer.
No, he doesn't die from cancer.
He dies from hitting a truck, and then he doesn't die from that. He survived, but the truck was full of peanuts. Yeah, he's allergic to peanuts.
Yeah. Because he gets
died.
Tested. You're like, he dies. No, he dies because he goes to get clinically. Like, his cancer's cured. He's great.
He tweeted all during that, by the way, and it was what? Cancer free, hashtag I'm gonna live forever, hashtag texting while driving, hashtag invincible, hashtag oh no, I'm gonna hit that car, I hope it's not full of peanuts. And then he goes hashtag scared, hashtag texting while driving. And it's like, oh no, it was full of peanuts. Hashtag dead. Hashtag allergies. Hashtag gone. And then, something. It's so dumb.
Because but that's the thing I love about it is that it's just so like goofy and like, third dimensional. It's crazy. But yeah, at the end of this episode of 1, he's kind of slipping in and out of positive old Bojack, like trying to like be
Yeah.
like good and bad. And
The
then
thing.
you go.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, he gets the call from his
Oh,
mother.
I was literally about to say the same thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the call from his mother
Yeah.
where she's like, kind of like, she read the book and she was just like, or she read an article about a book. And
Yeah.
she said that she didn't know.
No, she read the book. She said, I read all the things that you wrote about me, and you must think I'm a real monster. But the thing that she says that turns Bojack back to Bojack is that you were born broken, and that is your birthright. He wears the ugliness that he has inside of him for everyone to see, and she believes that he cannot be fixed. He was born this way, and there's no fixing what you were born with. And that's very indicative because his father is the same way, his mother is the same way, his grandfather and grandmother were the same way on Beatrice's side. We see a family who's so set in stone with their ideologies of like, this is what a traditional family value is. This is what this is. This is how the things will go. But we see that they believe in stone that they are all born broken and there's no fixing it. And that is just what Bojack has to live with. But this snaps him out of being like, I'm going to try to be better, to everything's bad now.
And then he just gets to the end. He's like, what are you doing here? And
Yeah,
like, that's a cut. We're going on.
So good.
Yeah.
They literally hit on with the, what are you doing here? And then they cut. That's the end of the episode.
Yep.
Nuts.
And then episode 2,
Yesterday Land.
Yep.
Bojack is too famous from his book is a big thing in this. He is super tired of being known. He's super tired of being recognized for his book. And it's very interesting because he's got this weird vapor of fame around him that he hates, but also like can't live without. We find out that, or not find out, but we see that there's a big theme of this episode of Bojack not listening. He doesn't listen to Todd whenever he says he's going to build Disneyland. He doesn't listen to Princess Carolyn whenever he goes digging later on. He doesn't listen to Wanda fully a lot of the time. Like,
who's this new character?
Yeah. And speaking of, Wanda is introduced. She was in a 30-year coma.
Yep.
And everything is fresh to her. She's this person who was in a coma whenever she was 20. And now she's an executive of a company because she's been there the longest. But she doesn't know who Bojack is, doesn't know what horsing around is, and she is like a breath of fresh air. She doesn't know who he is. He's not famous to her. She doesn't treat him any differently. She just treats him like a real person, and that's what he's wanted for like the longest time. And there's a big moment of like, this is love at first sight when she says, I don't know who you are. And that really shows us that like Bojack really does want to be not known, but his ego won't let him.
Yeah, she's just this really cool character that's like also like her antics throughout the season, just like fish out of water type beat where she like doesn't know anything is kind of cool, but also like, she like how she goes deeper with her relationship with Bojack is just like handled so well because she is this person that's not attached to his, because you see it, she's not really attached to his career or his life or anything. It's just like
I think
departed.
Out of every partner he's had in the show, I think she's the one I wanted him to be with the most. She is positive and upbeat, and she loves Bojack for who he is, and it makes Bojack a better person for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, she does make him feel better and does make him be better, but he ruins it later, and that's just so sad to me. But she's a positive force in his life, and she's good for him, I mean, ultimately. And I love that he kind of blurts out, do you want to go to Disneyland? Like, do you want to go to Disneyland?
Yeah.
And that's really funny. Also, my mic is like peaking.
This this episode, I mean, besides meeting that character, the rest of the episode is kind of like,
it's Todd centric.
It's Todd centric. I like that though. I like the show. Like I said, it balances different characters.
We got a lot of Todd episodes this season.
Todd, Princess Carolyn, not as many Diane episodes, but that's fine.
But she gets a lot more. I think next season.
Next season she does.
Yeah, next season, and then season 4 she gets a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but you get stuff like with Todd. He's like, I want to build Disneyland, and I've been wanting to, and he builds it, and then the Disney executives come in, and it's this total like off-brand like.
And Mr. Peanut Butter's being like a dick, which is like uncharacteristic of him.
Well, I mean, it's the start of, I think. Well, no, it happened last season 2. It's the start of Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd doing their antics of like, I have an idea, and they're just like the two worst people to combine.
It's just the way Mr. Peanut Butter, because Mr. Peanut Butter just gets excited about things, but he's strong-armed, even probably by accident.
Todd, out of his thing.
But I also liked something else I wrote down on here.
Yeah.
Is whenever Bojack and what is her name? Oh my God, Wanda. I always forget. When Bojack and Wanda are sitting at the roller rink, they get a thing of fries, and there's a curly fry in there, and he's like, "Why can't people just do their job? Why can't they do it?" But she changes that sentiment to, "It's cool, right? It's a little surprise."
Yeah,
and it's just interesting that she's got this positive spin on things that he starts agreeing with. Bojack is happy and he acts, but it's hand. What? He starts acting better.
Yeah,
which is good, just in general.
Yeah, tries to even be more positive to Todd a little bit.
The concept of an age of stagnation is in this, and that's something that Diane has to start grappling with, and that's a big plot for Diane this season is being scared of stagnation. And she's not only famous, she's a award-winning writer now. She also is married, and then she's gotten into a routine of monotony, and that is stagnation when it comes down to it. And she is terrified of stagnation.
John Mulaney, I'm sorry, that popped up. The voice of the
coma guy.
No, the hair person, the agent.
Rabinowitz, right?
Rabinowitz, yep.
But the new coma guy, Alex.
The KGB agent is funny.
Yeah, he's a KGB agent, and we get the awesome line of like, I put it down here, slap my salami, the guy's a commie. That's so funny to me. But Bojack is jealous of this dude and tells Princess Carolyn about it. He's like, I don't like him because he's got so much in common with Wanda, more or less. But it turns out he's a KGB agent, and against Bojack's better judgment, he spies on him to try to find this out. Todd wins that legal case, and also he starts separating himself from Mr. Peanut Butter this episode. And one thing that we see in this episode that I want to bring attention to is almost every episode we get an outside shot of his house in the morning. There's a baboon man who runs up the hill, and he is important later for one specific reason. But I just want to throw that out there. This is where we see him a bunch. Just put that out there. Betterment, health, all that good stuff. I like that Bojack says, I want to be better at the end of this episode. And he asks Wanda to move in with him, which is like a big step in their relationship.
Let's look at the notes, sorry.
Oh, you're looking at your notes? But yeah, that's my stuff on this episode.
Yeah, this one I didn't have any thoughts on. I like the introduction of Wanda. I like the cool... This is probably my favorite second story type beat. I mean, obviously, the second story is more Bojack and Wanda, but this is my favorite adventure that the side characters go on about like Disneyland and stuff.
I love the I just met my perfect match. That's like so funny to me. Whoa, we gotta restart the record.
That is really funny. But no, I don't have much to say on the second episode. I'm good.
Okay, well then we'll move on to episode 3, season 2. Still broken. We start off with the pilot episode of Horsing Around, which cuts to Herb's funeral, which I think is a really powerful way to cut to it. He says, it's like we're all going to have each other's backs no matter what, and then it cuts to all three of them in the same positions, but at Herb's funeral.
Yep.
He doesn't want the money from the show because it's blood money, so he says give it away to some orphans or something.
Yep.
And Charlotte comes back in this episode.
Yes, she does.
I wrote down fragilistic expiala bitch because that is the funniest thing I think I've ever heard Sarah Lynn say.
Oh, to her co-star?
Yeah, she says that, and that shit's so funny to me.
It's cool to see. Also, this is the first time we get to see a lot of like because we've seen the best Sarah Lynn, but we haven't seen much of the others. The other characters, like there's like the older son and the daughter, and the daughter is obviously putting on like that posh fake accent.
Yeah, he's like, I'm like 95% sure you were not British, and she's like, I just came from the pond.
Yeah.
I'm Juliet's nurse. And it seems like most of the people came from the show, besides Sarah Lynn, are not doing great. And Sarah Lynn is doing great financially, but not physically.
Yeah, and it's cool that I think we were talking about the character being seen in the flashback. The person giving this eulogy is played by Henry Winkler, who's this famous old actor,
Yeah, dude.
for being the Fonz and stuff. But
Love
it's
Henry
just
Winkler.
cool to see like that character stuff. But yeah, we see Bojack with Charlotte, and they really just talk for a little bit. It's like their first time really seeing each other in a while.
There's also like an emphasis on like Bojack does not have a family.
Yeah, he has nobody.
That is a real emphasis in this episode and in this season that he has. That it's weird that he doesn't have a family. It's weird that he isn't trying to be with anybody, and he thinks that he internalizes it. Also, whenever Bojack is given the opportunity to help with Herb's gold, he has this weird complex where he's like, "I wish that I could have made this thing better, and this is the only way I think I can." So they go on a little last show reunion episode.
Yep.
They think Herb was killed because of that voicemail that he got where it's like, hey, just want to let you know your brakes are totally fine. It would be actually inconceivable if your brakes didn't work and something happened.
Yep.
We actually never find out if he was killed or not.
Right. You're just kind of thrown away. Just more of like, because it's more of the premise of like what is in his will, what's his last little testimony. And I think that's something cool they do is that they tackle, like by showing the different clues, they show a little backstory of like Herb's relationship with each of the kids.
Oh yeah.
And I think that was really cool.
Yeah, and I like that he was the glue that kept Horseman around together, and it kept them from becoming cruel. I think if Herb was in the show all the way through, I think genuinely, Bojack would have been a way better person and would have been on a way better track. Because Herb was like his anchor for a lot of that.
Yeah, because even though Bojack was starting to get a little fumbly with the show, he never really he still had that like kind of like you said an anchor or like his heart for Herb and being this compassionate person. Where as soon as Herb was out, he just went into full like go mode, studio mode, and he was just this like entitled like person.
We talked to, or Todd turns cool this episode and turns into Toad.
Toad.
That's like the B plot, and he is super cool or whatever.
It's like in SpongeBob where he puts his teeth together and he's like now just like cool.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not Todd. I'm Toad.
I'm Toad.
And then I just love that.
It's shattered immediately whenever Bojack's like why are your sleeves up? And he's like, I just
yeah, because the whole episode
immediately gone.
Yeah, because the whole episode he just does these like really fun shenanigans where he's like, they're like, hey bud, what are you doing? He's like, hey man, just calm down.
Calm down, dude.
And then I love just that at the end. It's literally it's all just like a persona, and then Bojack just goes like, why are your sleeves up? And he's just,
dude, it's so funny.
I don't know. He just leaves.
The group goes and tries to find Herb's gold, but they actually end up finding out that it's been stolen, and there's a tuft of bear fur and stuff. So you assume that like his nurse killed him or something, and that was the whole plot of the episode.
And that it was just,
it actually turned out Henry Winkler took the book and
because his goal was actually just a will, it was like a book about his eulogy.
Yeah. Yep. And it was really, really bad.
And they were like, but we still have to keep it. It's like, no. Everyone likes, like, the thing about people remembering Herb being this, like, really nice guy, if you release it, their last known memory of him is going to be negative.
Stock, yeah. And something I took away from this episode the first time I watched it and still do, there's no meaning in death. No shame in dying for nothing. That's how most people die. That sentiment to me was really, really profound because death's a scary concept, of course, to tackle with. But the idea that it's okay to die for nothing, because like a lot of people don't think of that. We all want to make something of ourselves. We all want to do this, but most of us won't. And having that sent home this episode after Herb Kazaz dies and is remembered as a good guy among close peers, because he's not like in the news or anything anymore. Those close peers, he pretty much died for nothing. It was totally a freak accident, and it's okay that happened. And this is our first real big theme, I think, of death in the season. And I think it's the really biggest theme of death in the show. And this will precursor later, but this season has a lot of death in it. A lot of like embarrassing death almost. Like nobody wants to be known as the guy who hit a truck, survived, and then peanuts went all over him. And then later on, there's another episode, which we'll get to in a minute, where there's another like embarrassing way of dying. And that's just a big theme this season, that it's okay to die in a not cool way because it just happens to a lot of people. And I think that sentiment rings through the entire season. But speaking of, episode 4, season 2, After the Party, it's Diane's birthday, and after like a super good day with Mr. Peanut Butter, they go in and there's a surprise party waiting for her, which is way too much for Diane, and she actually ends up blowing up at Mr. Peanut Butter, and everyone leaves. And this episode's literally just everyone leaving and being weird, and the like Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane.
Yeah.
But it's centric, I think, to them this episode. Even though it's pretty equal.
I mean, everyone kind of gets a fair share of like different stuff, but this one definitely feels like Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter episode, which is good, because it leads into like the later decisions that happen like in the later part of the season.
And it's really interesting. Something I found out is Mr. Peanut Butter, I don't think he does it this season. I think it's next season he says this, but he says, I feel like we're 5 big fights away from
next season.
A divorce, and whenever 5 big arguments away from a divorce, and after that happens, there are exactly 5 arguments
until they divorce.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is nuts. And when we talk about next season, we're going to really highlight this. But this is the season where we start seeing a lot of dysfunction in their relationship, and this is a big theme for this episode of like Diane wants to not be stagnant. She's already had that idea put in her brain. She doesn't want to do that. And Mr. Peanut Butter is how he is. He's going to love her unconditionally, more or less. And it's this weird, almost toxic relationship because of that. And it's toxic on both sides. Like, you can be too nice. Like, that's a thing. And it's one of those things that's just super interesting to me, this episode. But Vincent and PC, we see like Princess Carolyn and Vincent, which is her quote unquote boyfriend.
Yeah. The kid, 3 people acting to one.
Yeah. But we see Billy, which is Vincent, but we think that it's his son.
Yeah. She's like, do you see that kid? He looks just like Vincent. It's like
he's got a secret family.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny that that's what they went to. But have you heard the Kevin theory?
That
it's Kevin is his name.
Is because that Vincent he actually has a sign because how they're animated with different sides.
Yeah.
I will say I don't think that theory exists only because in other animation they do the freckle thing, because it's just like easier to animate. In size they just flip it. But I know what you're saying is the theory is that he actually has a son because of on different sides.
And they just played it like he was a kid in a trench coat.
And his dad was just like really like a subversive. Yeah.
But yeah, because adult Kevin or adult Vincent has 4 freckles on his cheek, but the kid version has 2. But it's for both sides, which is really weird. Like I said, I don't know why they do that, and I don't know if it is because I don't know. BoJack is very well animated, and there's always something going on in the background. So it just baffles me that if it was like an animation error or something just to make animation easier, that they didn't like go through and change it again, because it's such a specific thing. But like I said, they may have done it just to mess with people. And we see Todd in the phones, and they have an update or a bug that makes them fall in love with each other.
Because they're in the car together, and they just like, it's like, what is love? And then they just keep falling for each other.
This episode's about relationships. Ultimately, that's all it is.
Because it is Vincent and Wanda and Bojack.
Vincent and Princess Carolyn. Todd and the 2 phones.
And Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane.
And Diane, yeah. And this is one of those things where we see what love is objectively. Princess Carolyn and Vincent break up because she's not ready for a real adult relationship yet.
We just missed the part where he ate the chocolate. I'm just kidding. It's just a bunch of running back and forth stuff. It's easy enough, but it's just funny.
Something else. The argument that the argument that Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter were having was if Tony Curtis was dead. And Princess Carolyn on her way home is like, he's not dead because I would know if he was. He's the one spark of romance left in this world that keeps me going. And when Princess Carolyn gets back in the car and she's upset that she had to break up with her boyfriend, and she sits down and talks to Todd, she literally says, Tony Curtis is dead.
Because now her happiness is gone.
Everything's gone. But we cut back to the joke, or to the Wanda and Bojack. Bojack is trying to self-sabotage and whatnot, but Wanda tells him a joke, and I have the joke.
Oh, yeah? What's the joke?
I'm going to say it.
If I don't laugh, it's not going to be funny.
I'm going to say the joke.
You have to say the setup, then the joke.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I will.
Do you actually have the joke? Or
Yeah, I
you
have the whole
Googling?
joke. I have the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Okay, so there's this gardener, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the amazing thing about this gardener is he knows exactly how many bags of mulch he needs for a job. Just by looking. Like, he gets it right every single time. He's the best. So one day, he looks at a yard he's working on, and he's like, 18 bags. So he goes to the store and buys 18 bags of mulch and goes to work. And when he's finished, the flower beds look amazing. There's roses and lilies and orchid bushes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one problem. He still has one bag of mulch left. He can't believe it. This has never happened before. Well, the extra bag of mulch drives him crazy. He's the guy who always gets the right amount. Like, that's his thing. He's like, extra mulch. Oh, no. So on his drive home, he throws the bag out of the window onto the side of the 101.
Okay.
It's pretty funny because mulch.
That was not funny.
That's the joke.
Now I see why they broke up.
Yeah, but Wanda and Bojack, she tells him this joke, and Bojack's very confused. He's like, you just told me a story. Like, that's not a joke.
Yeah.
And she's like, listen, we've got to take time to breathe on this. We have to take time to breathe on this relationship because they are very, very new. Mm-hmm. And then Bojack hits a deer. And
then, yeah, he hits the deer, and he just runs away and like, please let us take you to the hospital. Like, we need to, like, get you okay. Which I like the detail in the animation where after he hits the deer for the rest of the season, he never fixes his car. Yeah. And it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, and eventually his car is completely messed up and he sells it.
Yep.
When they go to help him, doesn't Bojack say, we're all afraid it'll be okay?
Yeah.
Like, that's like such a weird sentiment because I think it means something more to the scene and to the season. I think everyone is afraid. And the idea that it'll be okay is like such a weird thing to me. It's something weird that Bojack specifically said it. That's what makes it weird.
Like a person who really couldn't care less about a lot of people says that, yeah.
Anyways, Wanda decides to tell him another joke, which I have, and I will say it.
I like the contrast from her telling stories and him being like, so it's funny, you get the joke, you get the joke because it's this.
You get the joke. Speaking of which, by the way, the deer man was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, she tells him to comfort him. She tells him the other side or another joke. So there's a couple who just started dating and things are going really well. And one day the girl finds a box of old love letters from high school. So she's reading them and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so funny." It's the drama of young romance. So on a whim, she sends the letters to her ex-boyfriend, thinking he might find them funny too. Well, okay, that night she decides to tell her current boyfriend about it, and he loses his shit. They get into a huge fight about it. He's all, "Why would you send those letters to your ex? He's gonna think that you still love him." And she's like, "Relax, Brandon." So now the night is ruined because Brandon is obsessed. He's like, "That ex-friend's gonna come back for you. He knows where you live." So after dinner, he drives her home. She lives in one of those like big apartments by the freeway, and he walks her to the door, and he forgets to lock his car, and he leaves his windows down. But he kisses her goodnight. But there's kind of that weird like feeling, like it's one of those things where it's like like we had a big fight, but like we're still together. Then he gets back in the car and he starts to drive. And then he glances in his rearview mirror and his blood turns cold. Guess what was in the back of the seat?
Boyfriend?
It was the bag of mulch that was thrown off the freeway.
Two jokes.
That's a pretty good joke.
Two jokes are connected.
Pretty good joke.
Not funny, haha. Funny.
Funny, you got to think about it.
Funny mulch joke.
But she has the sentiment that some things just take time, and I think it's a pretty good joke. It's a cool story.
It's a cool little neat story. I think if I told you a story, I'd have to tell it off the podcast because it's pretty long. It's called the Green Golf Ball Story. Very, very fun story. It's actually probably emotional, but we can't tell it on the podcast.
Why can't we tell it on the podcast?
Because it's long and we have a podcast. Maybe we'll do a little keeping it short.
Maybe
we'll do a keeping it short episode where I tell the green golf ball story.
What we'll do is after this, we'll record that and then just make it its own thing.
We'll do it after we release this one. Like we'll release this Thursday and drop the other one Friday. We'll do that. I like that. Okay.
But yeah, so we have this cool side plot where it's like, Wanda's like, we have to give ourselves time. Everything's not going to be perfect immediately. And Bojack's just like spiraling with this idea of like, I am going to ruin this. It's going to be messed up. It's da-da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
But then we cut to Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter. And Diane feels humiliated that she didn't like the party.
Mm-hmm.
She felt humiliated because her husband did not believe her whenever she said Tony Curtis was dead. And he said, was he? And then she's like, yes. And he's like, really though? Like, he really just doesn't believe her sometimes. I just hit my microphone.
Yeah.
But we see the side of Mr. Peanut Butter. Whenever he argues, he doesn't realize he did anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I'm sorry for throwing you a party. What a monster I am. Like, that's his argument style, which is very not good.
No.
Diane is also 35, which is a high number. Diane pushes... she also starts, like, pushing on her insecurities. And it's one of those weird things where it's like, she wants things and doesn't announce them enough. But also, when she does announce him, Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't listen. So she has to, like, constantly grapple with, like, I don't like big gestures. I don't like big gestures. I don't like big gestures. And he's like, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's one of those things. And it's just indicative of the relationship. Oh, and Mr. Peanut Butter does not want her to leave on this exhibition to Cordovia, which she was offered, and she's like, I think this would make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
She's very self-righteous about it, but she's been kind of adamant on not going. But she blames him and pushes her insecurities of not wanting to go on him. And then she uses that to bolster herself, so she goes. But there's also this awesome moment in this where it's like, do you know what I do when you're away? Mr. Peanut Butter brings her inside and he goes, I wait there the entire day. And sometimes I'll dig a little hole and then, lay and take a nap. Whenever I hear your car, it makes me go nuts. It's my best part of my day. Like, this idea that he is so dependent on her for not only happiness, but also, like, everything, it feels like, is such a different side of Mr. Peanut Butter, knowing that, like, sometimes he sits down and he's just content. He's not always up doing things, which is just a really interesting side to the character. But they do make up, I think, at the end of the episode fully, and they go into the ball pit, and that's really fun. That's
a sweet little ending. I mean, it's not like master resolve, but it's just like because like obviously I know what happens in a relationship, but I'm like rooting for it. Like, oh, they have some hard times, but they really do like each other, and they can overcome it.
The next episode, I personally don't really care about.
It's just a filler. I mean, we can literally say the basis.
Episode 5, season 2, chickens.
It's literally just like you don't even need to look at your notes. I'll tell you what it is. Literally, it's a KFC ripoff where it's like this homebound farm from a rooster and chickens where they kill chickens and raise chickens and turn them into food where people eat chicken. Yeah, we do find out the horrible way food works in this world. But Todd saves a chicken from days and like sends it to the farm. So he saves a chicken, and Diane and Princess Carolyn help him because obviously they just like want to like do something nice. And Diane is currently taking care of Kelsey's daughter, who changed the set on that day, and they're trying to like be influential and show them that change can be made. And then they save the chicken, but then they take it back to the farm, and I think it just goes back to the farm or something. And they're like,
so what happens is they go to the farm and they save it again.
Yep.
And then Drew Barrymore, who has a bunch of property, knows Bojack and owes him a favor, so they send it there.
Yeah.
And the whole episode.
But then they don't ever stop the corporation.
Yeah. All the stuff they did, they're like, I think this really mattered, da-da-da. Bojack's the only one who saved the chicken in reality.
Only because he had connections.
Yeah. And then also, they passed by a sign that says 4 billion chickens served.
They keep adding the number up. Yeah.
Which is like, I understand that the episode is like supposed to have that little bleak meaning and like take your own small victories or whatever. It just doesn't feel like an episode you got to really watch.
No, it's the first kind of like filler one of the season. I do like the inclusion of the cat cop. He's fun, like down the road.
What is it? It's Officer Meow Meow.
Officer Meow Meow.
You're a loose cannon. I don't know about a loose cannon, but I'm definitely some sort of cannon.
Yeah.
Like, it's very funny, the cop kind of stuff that they have in here. But that's a very, like, it's the middle episode of the season. Speaking of the actual middle episode of the season, episode 6, season 2, Higher Love. PB Livin' is out of money. That's Mr. Peanut Butter's
production
brand.
company. Yep.
So he has to go look for a new job. He's kind of weird because he's like, I'm just going to let the universe do whatever it's going to do, which is a good mindset to have sometimes. But he actually ends up like finding out that his manager died from autoerotic asphyxiation. And this is what I was talking about earlier when it comes to coming back to like people die in embarrassing ways, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, this whole episode's about autoerotic asphyxiation, which is kind of weird. That's like what the episode's about.
It is, because Bojack wants to, find his kink with Wanda. It's...
That's not what it is.
She says, I love you.
No, he says it first.
He says, I love you, feels weird about it, and then he tries to justify it by thinking, oh, it's just a kink thing. And then at the end, he makes her want to...
Well, no, because Bojack gets a pager this episode. He bought one so that him and Wanda could communicate.
Okay.
And this is the first like big thing that he's done where it's like, I actively want to be with you. This is something I got so we could feel similar.
Yeah.
But he says, I love you for the first time ever in the relationship. And then goes, ha, no, I don't. And then runs away. But because of that, Wanda is like a bitch about it, which I think is really funny. I like seeing her kind of bitchy.
Yeah.
Cause she's really, really stubborn, and it's really funny. Cause she's like, okay, I don't love you either. Like, that's like her stance on this, and it was so funny watching her do that.
Yeah.
Mr. Peanut Butter is having a pretty rough day actually in this episode, but he finds like a woman's Foot Locker or something, and like starts like doing shoes or whatever for a little bit. Bojack is super stressed, and Bojack starts stalling at work, so he's like purposely messing up scenes, so he doesn't have to talk to Wanda about it because it's going to be awkward and weird.
Yeah,
he's never been so close with somebody. Conroy drinks with Bojack, which is his co-star for the show that he's doing on Sagittarius.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about autoerotic asphyxiation and how Corduroy used to do it a lot, but he's turned to the Lord now, and he has like a whole kit for it, and it's really weird.
And he gives it to Bojack.
He does give it to Bojack, yeah.
I love this. Okay, I know I won't jump ahead much of the episode. I love just what it looks like, this goofy contraption that he
yeah, it's so funny. But Bojack on set, I forgot to say this, I didn't put this in my notes. He gets paged to call Wanda, and he doesn't do it. And he sneaks in and he like lays down in the bed, and she wakes up and he's like, hey, like, oh, sorry I didn't call. Or she's like, I tried to call you, or I wanted you to call me. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, this, and this. And she's like, it's okay, I don't love you. Mm-hmm. And she says that, and it's so real and splitting, and that moment is just like, ow.
Yeah.
And then, Corduroy gives Bojack his weird thing. Mm-hmm. But he talks to him about, like, my girlfriend doesn't want me to do it anymore because she loves me.
Yeah.
And because of that, she wants me to be safe. And he's like, so your partner wouldn't want you to autoerotic asphyxiate yourself if they love you? And he's like, yeah.
He's like, interesting.
It's just one of those really interesting things where it's just... Bojack this entire episode has been fishing for like an I love you from her, so it's not weird anymore.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to autoerotic asphyxiate myself because it's dangerous and scary. And like, if you love me, then I wouldn't do it, just in case.
Yeah.
But he's like, but Wanda says you should do it, but if you love me, then don't do it. but she doesn't say I love you. She doesn't give him what he wants, and he freaks out about it. And he like still builds his whole thing, and he builds a whole like machine to autoerotic asphyxiation himself. It's really funny.
It's like a goofy little like contraption.
Oh yeah, and she new show, but she says she loves it. Destiny works out for PB.
Mm-hmm.
After the writer of Catcher in the Rye pitches a show, Hollywood celebrities, do they know things? What do they know? Let's find out.
Great title.
Oh yeah, and Mr. Peanut Butter gets the role for like the lead dude, the host.
The host of the show, yeah.
Hostess with the mostess. They say the elephant in the room with whenever Wanda is in the room with Bojack, and Bojack had an elephant help him.
And he's like, "Oh, wow, are you serious?"
He's like, "Wow, oh my, wow."
And he's like, and Bojack's like, "He's not coming back.
He's not coming back. He's gonna remember that forever." Is what he said.
Wow, are you serious? Come on.
That there's like
these small characters.
Everyone's got a wife.
Because there's a later episode where there's like a panda, and he's just like fixing the cable, and they're like, "Well, you got
Alex.
Alex, like
I think is his name.
It's like Alex is gonna die, and it's like
or Alan.
I think it's Alan. It's like
I wrote it in my notes. I'll find it
later. Yeah, but later it's just these fun little like small characters again. Because we see one in later episodes too. It's just the small characters are just fun.
Yeah, and they give everybody a little bit of attention.
Yeah.
Also, he starts choking himself, and like she comes. I love that Wanda comes in and goes, "Okay, I love you, you stupid baby," and like fixes it for him and stuff. And she's like, she does all this. And something else that was big in this episode is at the beginning of the episode, she asked him to fix the bed, and he like had these reservations about it or whatever. But whenever he built the contraption, he did fix it, and she noticed that, and like that, I guess that's what sparked it because she ran back in and was like, "Okay, I love you, big stupid baby," and that line is so funny to me because that shows that she really cares about him.
He's a big baby, yeah.
He's a big baby, but she still loves him, and that's like the best part about their relationship. Rutabaga divorces his lady.
He's in the concept of divorcing her. He's not yet divorced.
Yeah, he's going through with divorcing her.
Yeah.
And Corduroy dies from autoerotic asphyxiation after Bojack gave him the ideas of using like a belt instead or like earplugs or anything that could choke him.
That sucks.
It does suck. And this is it's a big moment for Bojack walking in on that, and then like it's such a weird theme to have for an episode, but I understand why they did it. But that brings us to episode 7, season 2. Hank After Dark. Hank Hippopopoulos has a show that wins an award against Mr. Peanut Butter Show and Bojack Show. And this is the first time Mr. Peanut Butter and Bojack meet. And also, it's the first time Mr. Peanut Butter hears Hank say, "What is this, a crossover episode?" And that just sticks with Mr. Peanut Butter. It's because it's from his hero, his childhood hero.
Because Hank is basically, I'd say, like in real world, like the Bill Cosby of Or I mean, they have.
I would say it's probably pretty.
It's pretty close to Bill Cosby-esque of this big, like around the time 90s, 80s, like father of television.
Yeah.
And everyone looks up to him, and then
Uncle Hanky is his name. Like that's his actual nickname that people give him.
Yeah, and then like now in the future he gets canceled. He's trying to be Me Too'd. But he's such
Diane only.
By Diane only, because he's such a big industry name where they're like, you're not going to be able to take him down.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where he says, you can't beat Uncle Hanky. Like, that's an actual thing he says. And I also like that this is the first time that I hear, or that I think I've heard at least, don't do that Bojack thing, is what they tell Bojack whenever he goes on tour. And he's like, what does that mean? I'm not going to do anything that's going to ruin this. Yeah. And actually, he doesn't. Diane does, which is actually crazy.
This also is the beginning to Diane starting to do like her... I mean, she was already going to be leaving for Cordovia, but this is her big shift of like, I'm not making a difference here in LA. Let me actually go see if I can make a difference like somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. Also, while Diane is like trying to take down Uncle Hanky, Mr. Peanut Butter calls her and he's like, could you please not do that?
Because he's like a big part of like this thing coming up, and he's like, I get that like what you're doing is like morally right, and that's true. Like what she's doing morally right, but there's so many other things like riding on like him being taken down. Like there's all like he even said he was like people who work under his industry and stuff. Like
her husband works.
Her husband
network that pulls him money.
People could lose their career and their job the fall of just one guy, and is it really that important to shut that down?
Something I thought was pretty crushing is Mr. Peanut Butter says, like, softly to Diane, like, don't make this a big thing, please.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want to make it a big thing either. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. And then Diane ends up going fully in on...
She goes all the way in.
All the way. She,
which is kind of like a
social
Diane
justice
thing.
system.
She just kind of goes super far.
Bojack does whatever he can this episode to get attention, which is really funny, because the actual episode doesn't have a lot of them.
He doesn't use... Yeah.
But he says, like... some crazy stuff on the internet and stuff, and like he's like, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna hate Bojack now. Like, he doesn't care what attention he has, as long as it's attention.
Yeah.
And Diane goes on the news to debate and stuff, and it's one of those interesting things where it's like Wanda's company is like riding on Uncle Hank's success and stuff. But Todd and the king of Cordovia, or the dictator of Cordovia, swap for the day.
Yep, I like that because he's like hanging out with Mr. Peanut Butter. He's like, Mr. Peanut Butter, I have a normal
American peasant.
I am American teenager, and then he gets swapped
Peasant
back.
boy.
I like at the end when he like comes back and they swap. He's like, guys, I really think that there's something going. Like,
Guys, I said yes to something, and I don't know if that was the right answer anymore.
And they're just like, Todd, please stop. Like, we don't really care. And he's like, this is a really big thing, guys.
Amanda is introduced to this episode. She's the manatee woman, and she helps or tries to help Diane take down Uncle Hank.
Uncle Hank. Yeah.
Uncle Hank sets up Diane by having one of his current what's it called, assistant, say I'll talk and stuff, and he's actually there. And man, he's so intimidating. And he walks up to her and goes, I'm Hank Hippopopoulos. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like, crazy that he, like, will flex that on people. He definitely did the things that were articled about him, but he gets away with it. Like, there's no repercussions for him.
Yeah, it's a pretty nuts episode. Where it doesn't really shift much in the season. It is such a big, like, Diane episode and stuff.
And Bojack puts aside his, like, book stuff and whatnot, and he says, Diane, I fully support you.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Peanut Butter does not, which is interesting. Mr. Peanut Butter talks to her again and is like, please stop doing this.
Yep.
But she does this whole big song and dance after he's like, please don't make it a big thing. And then she's like, but whenever I go to Cordovia, and he goes, go to Cordovia.
And she leaves.
Because Mr. Peanut Butter wants space.
Yep.
Which is like so sad. So he's like, go ahead and go to Cordovia. That's fine. But that's like the big main theme, I think, for that episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's
like, just go.
Just go, and sometimes the things you do won't matter, or you can't beat the system. And instead of making a big fuss about it, do something that you can actually like make a change with.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I think this season's the first season where we start getting like super big depth into the world and whatnot.
Yep.
Episode 8, season 2. Let's find out. We got an awesome one shot, I put in quotes,
at the beginning.
Animation.
Yeah.
But I love that they have that like one shot angle where it's like it's just Wanda and stuff getting her stuff done, and Bojack and Wanda, and like
she walks to the control panel room or something. That's really cool.
Yeah, and there's the idea of the pin this episode. Both Mia and Todd want to get this pin to be like, I'm something. I've made something of myself.
And where Mia like is this really hard like worker person.
Went to college, is like trying to do all of her stuff. And
Todd is just this guy who just showed up.
Yeah, he just got there.
Yeah.
Bojack goes on Mr. Peanut Butter's show as a favor to Wanda.
Yeah.
And on the show, Mr. Peanut Butter just ends up really just relentlessly making fun of Bojack.
Even these really tough questions too.
Yeah, super unfair show advantage and stuff. But Mr. Peanut Butter's being a dick in this episode, which Bojack tells him. He's like, you're kind of being a dick.
Yeah.
And then Bojack was actually the small celebrity for the episode.
Yep.
And
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah,
Harry
Daniel
Potter.
Radcliffe is the big celebrity this episode, and Bojack has to write an essay, while Daniel Radcliffe like has to answer like what the color red is.
Or he gets to catch money like those like vacuum machines. Yeah.
But Mr. Peanut Butter has a tail.
With his ears.
His ears pop up whenever he gets excited, and if he has a good like set of cards, they'll pop up. Or if he reads the right answer, his ears will pop up.
Yep.
So Bojack uses this to start answering completely correctly, and this starts freaking out Mr. Peanut Butter and the showrunners. They're both like, "What is he doing?"
Because they're like, "You're not supposed to win. The money's for charity."
Yeah, and Bojack is asked to like throw it for charity
From Wanda, yeah.
Yeah. So Bojack does. He does. He's like, I support my girlfriend, and I'm just gonna lose. It's gonna go to charity anyways. But then something that Mr. Peanut Butter said.
He says it's because it's the Secretariat answer, and he messes it up.
Oh yeah.
And he goes like, "Aren't you in a movie about Secretariat?" And then he just gets really like embarrassed. He goes, "Well, your wife left you," and he starts hitting hard.
Yeah, he's like, "That's why your wife left you to go to Cordovia because she doesn't like you."
He's like,
"No, he didn't. No, she didn't."
And he's like, "All right, you want to get real? Let's get real." Yeah. And they just sit down and have a chat.
Yeah, Bojack wants to get real.
And he's like,
Mr. Peanut Butter stops the show and just puts up two like fold chairs.
And I love that the TV producer is just like, "Outside rain. Let's make it like just dramatic." It's like, this is the cinema I want.
Mr. Peanut Butter and Bojack, Bojack's confronted by the fact that Mr. Peanut Butter knew that he kissed Diane the whole time, which is nuts. Bojack also, Bojack's jealous of Mr. Peanut Butter's life, and he's like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Peanut Butter," which is, I think, a very good indicator of like, he has everything he could possibly want, he's still not happy, and that's something Mr. Peanut Butter's like, why, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Bojack's girlfriend strong arms Mr. Peanut Butter into apologizing, which I thought was so funny. She is a very intimidating character.
She's all business, man.
All business sometimes.
Yeah.
Bojack and Peanut Butter kissed to make up, which was really funny. They had a kiss.
Daniel Radcliffe is like, this guy's like, you can't forgive him. He kissed your wife. I think the only thing is if you kiss him. And he's like, that's fair. And Bojack's like, wait a minute. I don't think this is fair.
Wait a minute. Also, Todd ends up getting the pin from Mia by tricking her.
I think that's so funny because I like the thing before is like, you didn't get the pin. He's really sad. He's like, here, have the pin. He goes, I can't believe you fell for it. And then I love the cut though where she's talking and it cuts him in the makeup room and it's just like, that's how I got this pin. And he's like, actually get out of the makeup room.
So funny.
Todd's Adventures are so funny.
And Bojack burns all the money he wins for charity.
Because there's a thing before. It's a what's it called? A throwback.
It's a callback, yeah.
Because he goes, I've never met you, Bojack. He's like, we met before, we had a really cool talk, and then now it's like,
Daniel Radcliffe was being weirdly mean to him for some reason.
I think he's just trying to be like a big actor, like face or something. And then Bojack's like, oh, what's the name of that guy who played Harry Potter? And he's like, Elijah Wood. And he's like, Elijah Wood. And it burns all the charity money.
Rutabaga invites. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
That's episode 9, season 2.
The shot.
The SWAT.
The shot.
Is it the shot?
HOT.
Nope. All right. We see Bojack's first smoke ever, and it was one of Beatrice's cigarettes.
It was after
she walks in on him,
smoking
it, and because he sees Secretariat.
Well, because the episode is Secretariat is about to get sent to Vietnam by Nixon, and instead they send his brother because he's like really like he's like, don't send me. I'm a national treasure. And then obviously Bojack loves Secretariat, so when he sees Secretariat smoking away his trauma on TV. He tries to smoke, and Beatrice catches him and is like, "Oh, you don't get to stop smoking. Keep smoking." And she forces him to finish.
I didn't raise a quitter in this house.
He's like, "Are you punishing me for smoking or stealing?" I'm punishing you for being alive.
Yeah, that was so. I'm punishing you for being alive. Rutabaga invites PC, so Princess Carolyn.
Princess Carolyn. Yeah.
By the way, anytime that I say like BJ is Bojack, PB is Mr. Peanut Butter, PC is Princess Carolyn. They just breaking it down like that. They use all of these nicknames in the show. Just throwing that out there. I put them in my notes as those. So, but yeah, Princess Carolyn to join a company or start a company with him.
Start a new agency. Yeah.
Diane goes to Cordovia. Cordovia sucks, by the way.
It's trash.
Sebastian Sinclair is really weird and eccentric and like full of himself. He's kind of like a jerk.
He puts aside like his morals is like, I'm doing this to save the children, but then he puts the children aside and trying to like build up more about himself.
Yeah, and he has a statue and stuff, or he'll be like, yes, the children are at hand, and then he'll take a selfie with them. Like, he's weird and eccentric. Bojack hates that they made Christmas a rewrite instead of the Nixon scene.
Because the whole
movie.
Secretariat movie is now being like, and that's a big thing with, and it's also like, if you know movies and stuff,
or
producing
celebrities.
movie production. There's a lot of changes and stuff where sometimes the producers will get what they want more than the actual creators. So in this one, this gritty Secretariat film wasn't looking good to the audience or wasn't looking at test screenings, so they changed it to be more of like the cliche Hollywood, like, just like drama story.
And Kelly's like, whatever. Like, it's fine.
She's like, I know the business. It's okay. And, she obviously does care, but she's just like, you have to.
Bojack talks her... Kelly's a very interesting character. Kelsey is a very interesting character because she means a lot to Bojack. Like, Bojack thinks of her opinion as, like, gospel, kind of, which is really interesting. But he talks her into shooting the scene and, like, goes through this whole plan of, like, Margot Martindale.
They steal the diorama to the Nixon library, and then Margot Martindale gets broken up. No, she comes out of prison.
Yeah.
And he gets there, and she's like, Bojack, it's only been like a minute. What took you so long?
She loves crime. She loves doing crime. I put that in my notes.
And they put together this, like, a plan.
Alan is going to die.
The panda bear is just fixing cable. They're like, one of us will most likely die. Mostly Alan. He's like,
most likely Alan.
Why me? It's like, well, you're already in the plan.
And he becomes a dad, actually, and doesn't die.
Yeah, because I'm so happy that no one died. I would have been so sad. I thought Margot Martindale was going to die, but
she got shot a couple of times.
Because she got surrounded.
She killed like 4 cops.
Yeah, there's an episode later in season 3 that shows how she escaped.
Yeah, Margot pulls out a gun and just starts blasting away.
It's like, oh, no. The line that gets me on that is that they're like, Margot, we said no gun. She goes, no, you said no gun, gum. He's like, but you're chewing gum. I'm a wild card.
And she blows a bubble. Diane sees someone die. So she sees, like, the kids she was trying to get along with and a bunch of the other kids from that just get blown up.
Because they get blown up by the war. And he keeps moving on. What's his name? Sinclair?
Yeah, Sinclair's like, we can't. There's too many people to help. We can't keep
And she's like,
on them.
You're awful. You don't care about these kids. Like, I do. It's like, we have to keep moving. And then he's like, he calls the kid's name. He's like, carry the... Oh.
Yeah, is it like Pico?
Pico, I think it's...
Yeah, he's like, Pico, come and grab my...
Oh, that's right.
And it's so awful. But Sinclair also... He's doing what he has to do, and he said, don't get attached to the kids. They will die. Like, kids are dying. I can't save everyone.
He's a jerk, but if you really look at it, he does make a lot of sense. He's also been in this environment. He is a little egotistical with it, and obviously is a normal perspective. But, yeah, it is like...
I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, he just is doing the better good. And he's not like killing people or something to do it. He's just... No, he understands that there are casualties.
He's desensitized to the death of war.
Bojack cannot cry in the Nixon scene, and Kelsey like talks to him about it and stuff, and he doesn't cry, and he's like, I think we got it. That was very good.
And then right after he cries.
Yeah, and Princess Carolyn doesn't want a simple life. She finds out,
so she takes the offer with
Rutabaga. Yeah, and then Margot kills some cops. We already talked about that.
Yeah.
But, Bojack gets a pep talk and stuff, and, like, she's like, I think it's going to be great, and then he ends up crying.
And then the next day on set, he comes back, and
Kelsey gets fired.
I forgot the producer's name.
Turtle Tom,
played by J.K. Simmons, is like, oh, yeah, I know you guys found out about that shot you did, and I didn't like that, so I fired her. And Kelsey's out.
I didn't pay you to do that.
Yeah.
And then Diane actually comes home from Cordovia.
Well, she doesn't tell Mr. Peanut Butter.
She doesn't tell Mr.
She's
Peanut
calling
Butter.
him. She's like, hey. And he's like, I'm so proud of what you're doing. And she's in the airport. So she just goes
I am.
So she just kind of just like...
It's hard
hides.
to be in Cordovia, she says.
Yeah.
Episode 10, Season 2, Yes and.
Mm-hmm.
Todd joins an improv group. That is the episode.
It basically is. I mean, it's more of a Todd-centric episode. We see Diane crashing with Bojack and them, and Bojack and Wanda. Well, no.
Bojack and the new director.
That's funny. The new director is so cool.
Dude, he's like, don't worry. Like, we'll fix it in post, and which you should never say. Also, he says, we're not making Casablanca. Come on.
And because he shoots like a scene, and he's like, I think we could do a better take. He goes, no, we gotta move and do the take. And then like, he seems like a nice guy, and he invites him over to dinner. And Bojack goes, I mean, you said yourself, man, this movie's gonna be bad. And he goes, the movie's gonna be bad. Like, he didn't know that. He's just thinking that like.
He was actually literally saying we're not making the movie Casablanca.
And he's like, wait, why would you say
why would you say that?
Well, the movie Casablanca already existed, and you're like,
why would we redo it?
Why would you just say that line then? It's like, Yeah, and then he's like, "You want more takes? I'll give you more takes. You want more lines? I'll give you more
I'll
lines."
give you more like he's just
Crazy.
100% crazy.
Yeah.
Princess Carolyn makes sure that BJ will join her whenever they move companies, and of course Bojack will join her.
Oh yeah.
Shenanigans ensue, or Shenanigags, which is the improv group.
Yep.
Which is more like a cult in this episode.
They become a bigger cult in the next episode, but it's crazy, yeah.
Oh yeah, and then Diane lies to Mr. Peanut Butter and stays at Bojack's house. Bojack has dinner with the director, where that all happens, of course.
Princess Carolyn has a big thing with Rutabaga where she's like, "I'm in," and we said that.
I'm in, and then they start kissing.
Yeah, and then there's a big thing with Wanda and Bojack in this episode.
Yeah, so Bojack gets depressed.
Yes, from just like everything going on so far.
And Bojack and his lady get into a fight.
Where he basically kind of gets really aggressive with it. I get that, she is busy and stuff, but this is what we see about Bojack is that he doesn't really like to take credit for like his feelings, and he attacks the person he really trusts, and she's like, "Okay, that's not like, you can't say that to me."
Yeah,
and
he
she
says,
"You're not proud of like the work you do or something."
Yeah, she's like, "What happened?" And he said, "You didn't know me, and you fell in love, then you got to know me," and that's like so sad. He genuinely thinks that once people get to know him, there's no going back.
Yeah.
And then she says it's funny because through rose tinted glasses, all the red flags disappear, and then they break up.
And then he goes to, in the very end of the scene, he goes to New Mexico to see Charlotte.
But it sets up like he was going to go to Wanda's house.
Yep.
And Wanda was excited to see him.
Mm-hmm.
She thought it was him, and she was excited to like get back together, and she thought that was going to happen.
It wasn't.
And it was a pizza guy. And it's so sad.
Yep.
Bojack's not happy yet, so he leaves, and then he goes to New Mexico.
Trying to figure out.
That's like this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also, no, the next episode's whenever Todd goes to the Shenanigans boat.
Yep.
But episode 11, season 2, Escape from L.A. Charlotte. It's Charlotte's.
Well, it's actually episode 12 with Todd, but because this whole episode.
Well, this episode is
all Bojack. Dude, this is the first episode that is no B plot. It's all A plot.
It's a very good episode too.
It's one of the best episodes of the series.
I like the Kyle and the kids.
Kyle and the kids.
Yeah. No, it's Kyle and the kids.
He's like,
one is named Trip and the other is other name.
and he's like
talk about her later.
And he's like, Charlotte's got a husband and he's funny. Yeah, it's funny.
Dude, Trip has a boner. I put that on here.
We did say that Trip has a boner.
Trip has a boner. Yeah.
And he's like, you're on a table with your parents, your sister, and an old man. And Bojack's like, wait, I'm the old man.
I'm the old man. And he's like, I think it likes attention.
And you just get to see these like awkward characters, like families that are just like the basic like funny dad, like stubborn teenager, and like the awkward son.
And Bojack inserts himself into this family dynamic, seeming like
pretty
seamlessly.
Naturally, yeah.
Yeah. But he also is like, oh, I need to buy a boat, and there's a boat
because
here.
Everyone's like, why did you come to New Mexico? He's like, for the boat, and they're like, you came to dry New Mexico for the boat.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's like super low key. You wouldn't know. Yeah. It's really funny.
Charlotte talks to Bojack, and she's like, I'm happy you came to see us. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that she's just like super nice to her friend. Like that's the definition of like Charlotte is this character where she's this person that is very mature, but she's also like very happy to like have.
She's also super childish. Like, she's a good character.
Yeah, she's such a good like person character.
Bojack and Penny go driving after she like harasses her mom about it.
And she asks him about like, why are you here? And he's like, didn't know where to go. Don't tell your parents. And then she talks about her relationship, and they kind of bond over like her.
I said it was girl talk. They bonded over girl talk.
Yeah, because she's like, oh yeah, so Tom was like, I don't know the name, so make it up. They're telling me Hannah H was telling Taylor, he's like, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know who these people are, and she's like, but that's like our thing, just saying like, hey.
Yeah,
and that's so funny.
And I was like, hey. And that was our thing.
Bojack, after Penny crashes his car,
yeah,
Bojack just trades it in for scrap money and buys a boat with it.
Yep.
And he says, oh, and Princess Carolyn calls him, and she's like, you're gonna burn down these bridges, and he said, just let them burn.
Yeah, because she's like, you gotta get back to set, and he's like, you know what? I'm okay with that. And it's like a 2-month, and I like that. This is, I like this is kind of like how they do it. And I don't feel like any like detached from it when they do like these 2 months later, 1 week later, like these cuts.
Well, like 5 years go by in the show,
the total show.
It's like I think it's like 5 to 6 years or something.
Yeah,
but it's pretty cool.
But it's like a big time jump where it's like 2 months later, he's adjusting the family. He's like living in the boat, and he's got like having dinner with them, talking, connecting.
They're family now. He's got people to love.
He's like the uncle. Yeah.
Bojack takes Penny to prom. And he meets Pete Repeat.
Hi, I'm Pete Repeat because I repeat everything, which he doesn't. He does it one time.
He does it one time. But Bojack buys them actual alcohol because they were drinking
vodka and Red
Bull. And he was like, "You're gonna get drunk off of something good, and we're gonna cut it with water so you don't have a hangover."
Yeah.
And Maddie starts drinking a lot.
She's like the girl that's like wants to just drink and stuff. And they have a good night. They leave the prom, and they just Penny and Bojack have like a dance, and they do the like little.
They put glow sticks on balloons and send them up.
Yeah.
And that's something that Herb, Penny, and not Herb,
Herb,
Charlotte, and Bojack did together.
And after they do that night, Maddie was her name. What was her name?
Yeah, Maddie passes out,
and they take her to
Bojack leaves her and Pete at the hospital.
Because he tells Pete, he's like, "Listen, you need to take the credit for this because if an adult does it, I'll get more in trouble. You guys will probably just get a slap on the wrist." And so he basically kind of manipulates Pete into like doing this like big thing.
It plays that the like you've got to do this, and he's like dong dong like that like little theme that they have.
Yeah, and then he's just kind of like, "You got this." And he's like, "Say it, I got this. Say it again, I got this." And he's like, "Yeah, that's right, Pete Repeat. You're the future of this nation."
And he's like, "It's okay," or he's like, "It's gonna be okay." Or is it going to be okay? Okay. And he's like, okay. Yeah, okay.
And he's like, awesome. And then they leave and they get to the house. And this is like where I think we should take a dive deeper into like what's going to happen.
Penny and Bojack are talking at the door. And Penny decides to kiss Bojack.
Or she wants to. I think he pushes off just like they don't kiss.
They like touch lips.
Yeah. Because this girl who's now had this not father figure but this another older man figure in her life caring about her and spending this really good night with him, and she's also young, she's a 17-year-old girl, these emotions in her where she doesn't know how she feels,
and she wants to have sex with him. Like she says that
I'm ready.
She's like, "I'm ready, I have condoms."
I put them out of my mouth. What? In health class, like on
a banana.
He's like, "Why would you put it on?"
But Bojack's like, "Go to sleep." Like I don't
because I mean he shuts her down. One, he's already messed up about the night, but he's also like, don't like this is like where I almost thought he was actually gonna be an adult about it, and then he goes and he sits down with Charlotte.
Yeah, he talks to Charlotte, and then they kiss.
And that was both them.
Both of them. That was a two-way party. But she was like, "God damn it!" After that happened,
because Charlotte was like, "We shouldn't have done that. Like we just need to like not maybe we should like just leave." And he's like, because a moment that she says you should leave, like in a very like calming way, like maybe they could like make up in a couple like weeks or something. He was like, "Please don't throw me away. I love this. I love your family."
She kicks him out.
Run away with me. And she's like, "Listen, I need you to be gone in like 2 days or so." And at this point, he's just like, he's just at his lowest again.
Yeah.
And
Penny wants Bojack.
And he just says, doesn't he say go to bed?
He says leave, Charlotte, and then he walks into the room.
And he doesn't close the door.
Yeah.
And then Charlotte sees the floating balloon.
Yeah, so she's like, "Oh my God," and then she goes and looks for him. He's up in the thing, and they were kissing.
No, they were like fidgeting his clothes.
Yeah, but nothing happened yet.
Yeah, and she, obviously being a good mother, like yells at her daughter and tells her to get out of there. And she thanks her later in like others in the rest of the series. But Bojack is like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like and he doesn't like this isn't him being like, "Oh, I'm sorry," like trying to deflect. He takes responsibility. He's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen," because he really hurt his past love or his friend. And she's like, "No, I don't care. You need to leave, or I will call the police and I will kill you." Like she's the rage you would probably feel, because I would feel the same way.
Yeah, she literally said, "If you ever come near my kids again, I'll fucking kill you."
Yeah,
that's nuts.
And what he basically cut ties. He burnt that bridge with someone he actually really cared about, and never gets resolved from that ever.
Yeah, never gets resolved.
Rest of the show, nope.
But it is important. It is important to his character and what happens later.
And we see him final couple shots as he gets on the boat and he's got a.
I used a picture of that in our last episode's thumbnail.
I mean, this video.
No, I used one for last ones too.
Oh.
Of the exact same scene. Because he's looking straight on with the glasses and stuff on. It's when he's on the boat.
Are you sure it's the thumbnail? Oh. Well.
I'll probably end up doing the same thing this this one. Episode 12, Season 2, Out to Sea.
Okay.
Diane is sad. Yes. So Mr. Peanut Butter, and so is Mr. Peanut Butter, but he puts on a brave face. Like, he goes out and he's like, okay, I can do this. Like, I'm here for the day. Bojack is considered a hero because of the orphanage he made, which is, like, awful.
Yeah.
That it's awful that he went from feeling like actual garbage to being revered as a hero, and in his brain, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Bojack doesn't understand how people live, like what makes people get out of the bed every morning and do their stuff every day. He doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
But Todd is like fully indoctrinated into this cult.
This is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes onto the Giggle Ship, and it's a boat that like they'll be like voyaging and doing improv like the entire time. Bojack finally finishes his movie. He's also not technically in the movie. They replaced him with a digital double, and it gave like the best performance of his career.
Because they said earlier in the season, they're like, we're going to scan your face in this, so when you do the movie, if anything would happen to you, like you die or get sick, we can finish the movie without you.
Yeah, and that's a real thing that happens, which is really funny. Carolyn's office is like fully started up. Rutabaga is like shut up an asshole, and then Princess Carolyn kicks him out. Like, she's like, we're not doing this. Everything's in my name. You lose. Todd sees Bojack for I think the first time this season.
Yep.
When he's grabbing his stuff.
Todd sees him?
Yeah. He goes in but I think they've only like had 2 interactions this season or something.
No, I think they never really had like as big of an interaction they had with like the earlier seasons, like with the space opera episode where they had a lot more time. This is more like,
yeah,
Bojack, where have you been? It's been like, because for them it's been probably like 3 months or so.
Yeah, it's been like 3 or 4 months. But Todd asked him, he's like, did you remember the first thing I made you when I was here? And he goes on this whole thing about pancakes. And then Todd says, you said, thanks for the pancakes. And that is something I've always remembered. But then Todd leaves. He goes on the boat, and he's a level 8. So he's like super high into this cult order. And he finds out that the captain is like a fake. He makes fake butt jokes. Everything. The most egregious crimes. And that's really crazy because like he's like kind of started looking up to this dude. Mm-hmm. And it's all shattered. It's all ruined. Princess Carolyn fully breaks up with Rutabaga, which is good.
Yeah, that was a big power move that I think was totally executed well throughout the whole season, where Princess Carolyn was taken advantage of by first season by Bojack, and then she started kind of having a bit of her own life. But then she kind of had a little rough spot with Vincent, and she got out of that, and then she was totally taken advantage of by Rutabaga, because we kind of like skipped over some scenes. He was like, oh, I need you to buy it or have it under your name because I'm not really done with my divorce yet, and basically using her, where at this point she was like, you're not using me anymore, I'm my own person, and she just walks out on him.
And he was like fully with her whenever him and his wife were still together.
Yeah.
And like, he was like, it's all good, we can just keep doing this, like whatever.
Yeah.
And he's just a dick and an asshole. Anna is introduced, and she is going to get Bojack and Oscar.
Yeah, Anna Spanakopita.
Yeah.
She's cool. And
Bojack goes and saves Todd.
Cool little thing about Anna Spanakopita. I know we'll talk about more later season. She's played by now, which is a big thing in the next season, getting like Oscar nominated. Current Oscar nominated actress Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
From Black Panther. She's so cool.
Diane is back, of course, and she's actually seen by Mr. Peanut Butter, and he calls her, which is really funny. And he's like, hey. And she's like, hey. But he's like, I was looking for the batteries for the remote. She's like, oh, well, have you checked the junk drawer? And he's like, yeah, but they're just not in there. I think I'm going to take them out of the fire detector. And she's like, no, don't do that. And he's like, I don't know. I'm out of options. Like, he's not angry with her or upset. He's just is excited to see her again and happy.
For a while, and also in the episode, like a couple episodes back, he was like, oh, I really love calling you. And she goes, and this is when she first gets back. She's like,
yeah,
I don't think we should talk.
It's too hard.
Yeah, and then they get to talk again. They get to kind of rekindle their relationship.
But it's just good seeing that like Mr. Peanut Butter and her are still working out at this point.
Yeah. So I guess end of season stuff. Where is everybody at now? Princess Carolyn has got her own new agency. Todd is saved from the cult.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, Bojack saves him
on the boat.
But what he says to him is, "You made hash browns, not pancakes." And that's like a big thing that he remembered, and he's like, "I was just happy that you were there because I had somebody to be with."
Yep.
And that was the first time he was vulnerable with Todd.
That's true.
But that was the like big character arc for Bojack, is like he feels awful about everything he's done. He feels like he doesn't deserve to be a hero. He feels like he doesn't deserve an Oscar. Mm-hmm. His movie's really, really, really good, and he didn't act in it. And he's got this weird like imposter syndrome going on this season, which is where he's at right now.
Yeah.
Todd got saved, and he's I think with Mr. Peanut Butter, right? Like, is this when he moves in, or does he move in next season?
He moves in next season, but he does. They start to do more binding because he still works under Mr. Peanut Butter, so they do a lot more shenanigans and business deals.
Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane are in a really weird place right now.
Yeah.
Not a good place either.
Yeah, no.
But they're together.
They're working it out.
Yeah. Princess Carolyn is independent. She's got her own place started. It's scary for her, but she's gonna do it.
That's the basic.
That's the cast.
That's the guess. Yeah, because we've gained some people, we've lost some people, and it.
Margot Martindale's in jail.
Yeah. No.
Oh, that's right. She's not. Yeah.
We won't disclose it.
Yeah. I forget. It starts at the next season.
So you watch the season, but
she's not in jail.
Yeah, but no, I think this was a perfect. I mean, not a perfect. This was a good ending where the first one had a cool little ending to the season one on a bit of a high note. This one ends on a bit of a middle note, and so we'll see where the rest of the seasons take us.
I feel like I talked a lot this episode.
I like that. I like that you're kind of more, because in other episodes I've been more the note taker speaker, and you've been more the receiver. This is your thing. I like being the receiver for this. I mean, we can have more back and forth on other stuff, but I like that this one.
If you guys want a podcast where it's just me and not Cooper, let me know, and I'll just make the real podcast.
And I'll just make the deal podcast, where I just do a bunch of like business deals with people.
Yes or no on the deal? Deal or no deal?
No. And I'm like, well, that's the podcast, folks.
Well, everybody else, go home. Enjoy. No, I think, though, that BoJack's is a compelling show, and we're getting into it. Yeah. And there's a lot more to talk about.
Yep.
But I think we'll have this out Thursday.
So
and then
the plan, what we might do, we're not going to be super certain, but this is coming out Thursday, or what you're listening to it now. We will have a Keeping It Short episode of the Green Golf Ball story tomorrow. And then you guys will also might get our initial like out of theater reaction to the Dungeons and Dragons movie, because we're big D&D people. Hopefully. So no promises, but right now it's going to be keep going with the BoJack stuff. We might do a Sweet Tooth episode when that drops end of April. But yeah, just keep checking in, keep listening, y'all.
Keep listening. Special thanks to some people who have kind of talked to us on our Instagram DMs, by the way. Just like knowing that like the podcast is reaching people that like we don't know,
that are outside of our initial like friend group and
very
stuff.
Very cool guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right now we're working on getting everything set up on Anchor and some other services. Yep. So hopefully that'll be up before we get the next episode out.
Yeah.
But I've been Christian.
I've been Cooper.
And this was The Real
Deal
Podcast. See you later.
Bye.